The night was cold on the ruined battlefield. Broken machines lay like skeletons across the ground, their metal twisted and burned. Captain Reed walked alone among the wreckage, his boots crunching on ash and shattered glass. He carried his rifle, but he felt no victory, only silence, only death. Then he heard a whisper so faint he thought it was the wind. "I can clean your boots, human. Just feed me until you're full." Reed froze, his finger tight on the trigger. The whisper came again, weak, trembling, yet clear. From the shadows of a broken wall, a small figure crawled out. It was an alien, thin, almost starved, its skin, pale with strange patterns that glowed faintly. Its eyes were large and bright, not dull like a beast, but sharp like it understood. The alien lowered its head to the dirt, pressing its face near Reed's boots. "I can serve. I can clean. Just food. Human, please." Reed's heart pounded. This was not what he expected. Humans had fought this species for years. They were called the Varen, a name spoken with fear. The Varen were said to be killers, ruthless, merciless in battle. But here was one, kneeling like a beggar, voice broken, body trembling. It did not attack, it only begged. Reed stepped back, raising his rifle. "Why should I trust you?" he asked coldly. The alien lifted its face, and in its eyes, Reed saw something shocking. Tears. "I do not want trust," it said. "Only food, only life, just until you are full." The word struck Reed like a blade, simple, desperate, almost human. For a long moment, Reed stood frozen, torn between duty and instinct. He could call command, report the alien, and watch soldiers drag it away. Or he could shoot now, end the threat. Yet his finger refused to pull the trigger. Instead, he reached into his pack, pulling out a ration bar. The alien's eyes widened, glowing faintly with hope. It crawled closer, but not too close. Waiting, trembling, Reed tossed the bar onto the ground. The alien snatched it with shaking hands and devoured it like fire to dry wood. When it finished, it licked the wrapper clean. Then it lowered its head again, pressing its forehead to the dirt. "Thank you, human," it whispered. "I can serve you. I can be useful." Reed felt uneasy. This was no ordinary prisoner, no mindless enemy. This one spoke with respect, even devotion. "Who are you?" he asked. The alien raised its head. "Lyra," it said softly. "I am called Lyra." Reed studied her. Yes, it was female, or seemed to be. Her body was thin, fragile, yet her eyes held intelligence. Too much intelligence. She was not like the stories, not like the monsters his commanders described. Something inside Reed shifted, a seed of doubt. Lyra crawled closer, still keeping her head low. "I can clean your boots. Human, I can carry your pack, I can fight if you ask, but please feed me until you are full." Reed almost laughed, but the sound died in his throat. Her voice was too broken, too sincere. The night grew colder. The wind howled across the ruins. Reed thought of the dead soldiers, the burned cities, the endless war. Was this alien the cause or just another victim? He did not know, but he could feel one thing. This moment was dangerous. If his unit found her, they would kill her instantly, and if the Varen discovered her serving him, they would hunt them both. Reed lowered his rifle, but his eyes stayed sharp. "You stay close," he ordered. "You try anything and it ends." Lyra nodded quickly. "Yes, human, I will not fail." She crawled behind him like a shadow, careful, obedient, almost grateful. As Reed walked through the ruins, he felt the weight of invisible eyes. The battlefield was silent, but silence was never safe. Somewhere beyond the broken walls, hidden shapes moved. Machines hummed in the dark, scanning, waiting. Reed felt it in his bones. He was being watched. Lyra whispered suddenly, her voice trembling. "They are here, human, the ones who chained us, the ones who hunt us." Reed froze, turning sharply. "Who?" he demanded. But Lyra only lowered her head, her body shaking. "They came for me, not for you," she whispered. In that moment, Reed knew. This was not a chance meeting. This was the beginning of something far larger, far more dangerous. and the night sky above seemed to shiver with unseen ships, waiting. The hunter had found its prey, and Reed, by giving one piece of food, had stepped into a war far beyond his orders. The dawn came slow over the battlefield. The sky was heavy with smoke, painted red by the rising sun. Captain Reed sat by a broken wall, his rifle close, his eyes fixed on the alien who now followed him like a shadow. Her name was Lyra, and though her body looked weak, her eyes never stopped watching, never stopped thinking. All night she had stayed near him, curled on the dirt like a starving dog. Reed tried to rest, but sleep never came. Every time his eyes closed, he saw her face in the glow of the fire, a face not of a beast but of someone broken, someone who wanted to survive. Reed finally spoke, his voice low. "Why are you really here, Lyra?" The alien lifted her head, her eyes shining faintly like glass touched by moonlight. "I told you, human," she whispered. "I can clean your boots. I can serve. I can live, if you feed me." But Reed shook his head, his voice sharp. "That is not enough. You know more. You know things you are not saying." Lyra grew still, as if caught. For a moment she did not answer. Then she whispered words that chilled him. "Your people. Think my kind are killers, but we are not truly. Something worse hunts us, something even your armies cannot fight." Reed stared at her, the wind biting his face. "What are you talking about?" he demanded. But Lyra only lowered her gaze, her hands trembling. "They chained us, human. They made us into soldiers, into monsters for their war. My kind did not choose the fight, we were made into it." Reed felt his stomach twist. It was madness. His commanders had always told him the Varen were born for war, but here was one saying the opposite. She was not lying, at least not with her eyes. Still, doubt burned in his chest. "Why should I believe you?" he asked. "Because I have nothing else," she answered, her voice breaking. "If you leave me, I die. If you feed me, I live. But if you listen, maybe your people also live." The words hung heavy between them. Reed turned away, staring at the smoke of the ruined base rising in the distance. He thought of his orders, of his commanders. If he reported this alien, she would be dragged to the labs, cut apart, studied like a weapon. But something deep inside him told him that would be a mistake. Something told him Lyra was different. Hours passed, and they walked together through the ruins. Lyra moved quietly, almost invisible. She avoided open ground, slipped behind walls, as if she had lived her whole life hunted. More than once she warned Reed to stop before they reached a corner. Each time he listened, and each time he found a danger waiting, broken mines half buried, tripwires strung between walls. She saw, then before he did, saving his life again and again. "You notice too much," Reed muttered, suspicious. Lyra looked at him, her voice soft. "When you are hunted every day, human, your eyes must learn." That night they found a shelter in the ruins of an old house. The roof was half gone, the walls cracked, but it gave them shade. Reed shared a small pack of food with her, and again she ate with desperate hunger. After, she spoke quietly, like a child afraid of the dark. "Your people. They are brave, they fight with heart, but they do not see the real enemy." Reed leaned closer, his voice sharp. "Then tell me, who is the real enemy?" But before she could answer, his radio crackled alive. A cold voice from command spoke. "Captain Reed, report your position. We are sending recovery units over." Reed froze, his heart pounding. If he told the truth, if they found Lyra here, she would be dead before the sun rose again. Lyra's eyes widened with fear as she heard the voice. "Please, human, do not give me to them. Please," she begged. Her voice shook like glass ready to break. Reed pressed the button on his radio. "This is Reed," he said slowly. I am alive but wounded, moving through the ruins." The voice answered sharp. "Copy, Captain. Hold position. We are sending a unit to extract you and to remove any hostile presence." Lyra crawled close, her face pale. "They will kill me, human. They will not ask questions. They never do." Reed clenched his fist, torn between duty and the strange bond forming inside him. He looked at her and whispered, Then we run before they arrive. Lyra's eyes shone with sudden hope. Yes, human, yes, I will follow you anywhere until you are full. But Reed's heart was heavy. He knew what his choice meant. He was turning against his orders, against his own people. For one alien, one beggar who should have been his enemy. Far away, under the smoke-filled sky, engines roared. A unit of human soldiers was already moving toward his signal, and unseen above the clouds a dark ship hovered. Its machines watched, its sensors searched. They were not only hunting Reed, they were hunting Lyra. Reed checked his rifle, his pack, his last pieces of food. His choice was made, and there was no turning back. The world had changed the moment he gave her food. Now, both human and Varen walked a path of betrayal and danger. The secret of Lyra was no longer safe, and the hunters were closing in. The ruins shook with the thunder of engines. Captain Reed moved quickly through the broken streets, Lyra close behind him. Her steps were light, almost silent, but Reed's heart was heavy with the sound of betrayal. He was a soldier sworn to obey, yet now he was running from his own command. Ahead, the smoke cleared enough for Reed to see the wreck of an old transport truck. He ducked behind it, raising his rifle, watching the street. Lyra crouched near him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "They come for you now," she whispered. "Not for me, but for what I know." Her voice was soft, yet it carried the weight of truth. Reed did not answer. His radio hissed again, a voice sharp and commanding. "Captain Reed, stay where you are. This is a direct order. You are carrying. Hostile presence, do not resist. We are authorized to use force." Reed's grip tightened on the rifle. His own people, his own brothers in arms, were now hunting him. He looked at Lyra, her thin frame trembling, but her eyes steady. "You should leave," he muttered. "If they find us together, they'll kill us both." But Lyra shook her head, her voice low. "I cannot leave, human, not now, not when the chains are so close." The ground trembled as armored vehicles rolled into the ruins. Reed's unit, men he had fought beside for years, spread out through the streets. He recognized their voices, their calls, their footsteps. Memories of shared battles clashed with the cold truth. Tonight they were not allies. They were enemies. Reed's heart burned. He wanted to shout, to explain, to tell them Lyra was not what command claimed. But he knew it was useless. To them she was a threat, a target. Nothing more. And Reed himself was now a traitor. "Captain," a voice called from the street, firm but not unkind. It was Lieutenant Hale, Reed's second in command. "We know you're here. Come out. Lay down your weapon. You don't have to do this, brother." Reed pressed his back against the truck, his chest tight. He remembered Hale's laughter in the barracks, the nights they drank together, the battles they survived. But duty now stood like a wall between them. "I can't, Hale," Reed whispered under his breath. "Not this time." Lyra's hand touched his arm, gentle, uncertain. "They will not stop," she whispered. "They follow orders without question. They do not see the chains." Reed nodded grimly. "Then we make them see," he said. Though his voice shook, the first shots rang out. Sharp cracks echoing through the ruins. Bullets tore into the truck's metal, sparks flying. Reed returned fire, aiming high, warning shots. He could not bring himself to kill his own men, not yet. But their guns were not hesitant. The air filled with the scream of gunfire, the crash of grenades, the roar of engines. Lyra moved with surprising speed, pulling Reed away just as the truck exploded in flame. Her body shielded his, though she was half his size. He stared in shock as the firelight glowed against her skin. Strange patterns flared along her arms, bright as molten silver. "What are you?" he breathed. Lyra shook her head, her voice breaking. "Not weapon, not beast, just slave." But free now. The soldiers closed in, shouting, their lights cutting through smoke. "Captain Reed, surrender," Hale's voice thundered. "Don't make us end this here." Reed fired again, this time forcing them to dive for cover. His heart twisted with every shot. These were his people, his family. But the chain of command had turned family into hunters and him into prey. The fight raged through the ruins. Reed and Lyra ducked through broken houses, climbed over collapsed walls. Every step was survival, every breath heavy with smoke and dust. Reed saw faces he knew aiming rifles at him, men who once trusted him, now pulling triggers without hesitation. At last, they were cornered in a shattered courtyard. Walls crumbled on every side, no way forward, no way back. Hale stepped through the smoke, his rifle steady, his eyes full of sorrow. "Reed, don't make me do this," he said. "Drop the weapon, give us the alien, and maybe command. We'll show mercy." Reed's chest ached. "Mercy?" he spat. "You know what they'll do to her, Hale. They'll cut her open, call it science, call it victory." Hale's jaw tightened, his voice hard. "It's not our choice, Reed, it's orders. It's survival." Reed raised his rifle, his hands shaking. He looked at Hale, at the men behind him. He thought of the war, of the years of blood, of the faces of the fallen. And he knew one truth. Sometimes the real enemy was not the one in front of you, but the one giving the orders. Before Hale could fire, Lyra stepped forward, her body glowing brighter. "I will not let them chain me again," she whispered. Her hands lifted, and a wave of light burst from her skin. The soldiers staggered back, shields flickering, weapons failing. Reed grabbed her, pulling her close as they ran through the chaos. Behind them, Hale shouted, his voice filled with anger and grief. "Reed, you've chosen wrong. You're finished." But Reed did not look back. He held Lyra's hand tight, her glow fading as she stumbled beside him. The night swallowed them, and the ruins echoed with the sound of men who had once been brothers, now enemies. Reed's heart was heavy, his soul torn. For the first time in his life, he had turned his weapon on his own, and he knew the path ahead was darker than any battlefield, human versus human, brother against brother, and in the middle, one starving alien who carried secrets that could break them all. The night swallowed them as they ran from the courtyard. Reed's boots hit the broken ground hard, every step echoing like a drumbeat of fear. Behind him, the shouts of soldiers rose, human voices, men who once trusted him, now hunting him like prey. Beside him, Lyra stumbled, her thin frame glowing, faintly, the light from her body fading as if her strength was burning away. "Faster," Reed urged, his hand gripping hers. Her breath came in sharp gasps, but she kept running, her eyes wide with terror. The ruins stretched endless, broken towers and shattered roads twisting into a maze. But Reed knew no maze was enough to hide from trained soldiers. They had scanners, drones, engines that could track a heartbeat in the dark. Above, the sky rumbled, shadows moving against the stars. Reed glanced up and saw the outline of a ship, sleek, black, silent, not human. The enemy was here too. His chest tightened, hunted from both sides, human and alien alike. They slipped into a collapsed building, hiding among steel beams and broken glass. Reed pressed his back against the wall, his rifle ready, his breath heavy. Lyra crouched beside him, trembling, her glow flickering like dying fire. "They are close," she whispered. "I can feel them. I can hear the chains in their steps." Her words were strange, but her fear was real. Reed peeked through a crack in the wall. Human soldiers spread through the street, their rifles scanning, their eyes cold. Behind them, shadows moved differently, taller, sharper, not human, Varan hunters. But these were not like Lyra. Their armor gleamed with cruel symbols, their weapons alive with strange energy. The real monsters of this war had entered the hunt. Reed's mind raced. He had no allies, no command, no safe ground, only one choice. Keep moving, keep Lyra alive. But how long could they run? The soldiers drew closer, their voices sharp through the radios. "Sector clear, moving east, target is not far." Reed's jaw tightened. He had heard that tone before, the calm voice of hunters certain of the kill. Suddenly, a drone hovered into view, its red light sweeping the rubble. Reed cursed under his breath, pulling Lyra down. The light passed over their hiding spot. For one heartbeat, Reed thought they were safe. Then the drone stopped, its sensor locking on them. A sharp alarm screamed into the night. "Run!" Reed shouted, dragging Lyra to her feet. Bullets and energy blasts ripped through the walls as they fled. The ground exploded, fire chasing their heels. Reed fired back blindly, his shots cracking against metal. but there were too many, far too many. They darted into an alley, leaping over debris. Reed's lungs burned, his muscles screamed. He was strong, trained for war, but even he could feel the weight of exhaustion. Lyra was weaker, stumbling more with each step. Her glow dimmed until it was only faint lines across her skin. Reed saw her knees buckling, her breath breaking. "Stay with me," he barked, his arm pulling her forward. But her eyes were glassy, her body failing. They burst into an open square, lit by fire from broken vehicles. The world spun with sound. Shouts, engines, weapons charging. From one side, human soldiers closed in, rifles ready. From the other, Varen hunters stepped into the light, tall and merciless. For the first time, Reed saw them fully. Chains hung from their armor like trophies, and in their glowing eyes there was no mercy, only ownership. Lyra froze, her whole body shaking. Her voice cracked like breaking stone. "They came for me, human. They do not care for you, only me. I was theirs, I was chained, I was made to serve, and they will not stop until I am theirs again." Reed raised his rifle, his heart hammering. He had faced many battles, many enemies, but this was different. Here he was trapped between his own people and the nightmares of another race. Both wanted blood, both wanted the alien at his side, and he was only one man, Captain Reed. Hale's voice rang out across the square. The lieutenant stepped forward, his rifle steady, his soldiers behind him. "You have no way out. Don't throw your life away. Give us the alien and you live, resist and you die, here." At the same time, one of the Varen hunters raised a cruel weapon. Its voice hissed in a language Reed could barely understand. "Slave, return. Chains await. Serve again." Reed's mind spun. Two enemies, one choice, no escape. He looked at Lyra, trembling. Her eyes locked on him. "I cannot go back," she whispered. "If they take me, I die. Better to die here free than live chained." Reed clenched his jaw, his decision sharp as steel. "No one chains you again," he said. He fired first. Not at Lyra, not at his soldiers, but at the Varen hunter. The shot cracked through the night. The hunter staggered, roaring in rage. Chaos exploded, humans and Varen firing at once. The square turned into a storm of fire and death. Reed pulled, Lyra with him, diving behind wreckage as blasts tore the ground apart. Screams filled the air, men and monsters falling alike. The hunters moved like shadows, striking fast. The soldiers answered with grenades and bullets. Reed used the chaos, weaving through. The storm, his only goal. Escape. Lyra clung to him, her glow faint but steady now. For the first time, Reed felt something strange. Trust. She trusted him not as master, not as jailer, but as ally. And in that trust, Reed found strength. At last, through smoke and fire, he saw a path, a broken tunnel beneath the ruins, dark and narrow. "Move!" he shouted, pulling Lyra inside, behind them. The square burned with screams and light, but the tunnel swallowed them. Cold and silent, Reed's chest heaved, sweat stung his eyes. He knew the chase was not over, not even close. Humans and Varen, both wanted them and both would never stop. But in this darkness, for one heartbeat, they had escaped. The chase had only begun, and the hunters were still behind them. The tunnel was dark and endless. Water dripped from broken pipes above, echoing like distant footsteps. Captain Reed moved carefully, his rifle raised, his senses sharp. Behind him, Lyra stumbled, her glow, dim but steady, like faint stars in the night. For hours they walked, the silence broken only by Reed's breathing and Lyra's soft gasps. He could feel her weakening, her steps slower, her body trembling. "Sit," Reed ordered at last, stopping. Near a collapsed wall, Lyra sank down, her face pale, her voice almost gone. "I cannot keep this body strong without more," she whispered. "I need food, human, or I will fade." Reed opened his pack, pulling out his last rations. He stared at them, barely enough for himself, certainly not enough for two. But when he saw her, thin hands shaking, her hollow eyes fixed on him with desperate need, his choice was clear. He pressed the food into her hands. "Eat," he said firmly. "You live first, I'll manage." She hesitated as if ashamed, then began to eat slowly, carefully. Each bite brought color back to her face, the faint glow on her skin brightening. When she finished, she lowered her head. "You should not do this," she whispered. "You risk yourself for me, and I'm not even human." Reed leaned against the wall, exhaustion heavy in his bones. "You're alive," he said. "That's enough reason." Her eyes widened at his words, and for a moment, silence stretched between them. But deep inside Reed, doubt grew. Was he saving her because of compassion, or something more dangerous? Hope. Later, as they moved deeper into the tunnel, Reed began to notice strange marks on the walls. Symbols, carved into stone, glowing faintly like old wounds. Lyra froze when she saw them, her whole body trembling. "These are not human marks," she whispered. "These are theirs, the masters who made us slaves." Reed studied the carvings, cold, crawling up his spine. "They were here?" he asked. "Yes," Lyra said, her voice shaking. "Long before your war, long before your kind even knew the stars, they built tunnels like these. They watched us, shaped us, used us." Reed tightened his grip on his rifle. Her words painted a picture darker than any war report, a race powerful enough to twist entire species into weapons. If that was true, then maybe Lyra's people had never been the real enemy. Maybe humanity had been lied to all along, but as the thought formed, another voice echoed inside Reed's head. It was not Lyra, not his own. Something else, cold, commanding, ancient. "She is ours, human. Give her back, and live. Refuse. And fall." Reed staggered, his head pounding. He aimed his rifle into the shadows but saw nothing. "What is it?" Lyra asked, her voice urgent. Reed gritted his teeth. "I heard something. Someone spoke in my head." Lyra's face grew pale, her eyes wide with fear. "They reached you," she whispered. "The masters. They can slip into minds, twist. Thoughts make soldiers turn on each other." Reed's chest tightened. The true enemy was not only out there, it was inside, whispering, planting seeds of doubt. His own mind was no longer safe. He slammed his fist against the wall. Furious, "No," he growled. "I won't let them in, I won't." Lyra touched his arm gently, her voice soft. "You must fight them, human, or they will use you against me." Her eyes met his, glowing faintly with desperate trust. For the first time, Reed realized he was not just fighting to protect her body, he was protecting her soul, and maybe his own. They moved again, pushing deeper into the tunnels, but Reed felt the whispers growing, always at the edge of hearing. "She lies, human. She will betray you. She will kill you when you sleep." He shook his head violently, trying to silence them, but the doubt cut deep. Was Lyra telling the truth, or was she using him, just as the whispers claimed? At last they reached an underground chamber, wide and filled with broken machines, rust-covered old consoles, shattered glass crunched beneath their boots. But in the center stood something still alive. An ancient, pod glowing faint blue. Lyra gasped, stepping closer, her voice trembling. "This is one of their cages, where they grew us, where they broke us." Reed stared at the pod, cold crawling through him. Inside lay the remains of another Varen, chained, lifeless, its body twisted by strange implants. Lyra covered her face, tears glowing on her skin. "They turned us into tools, not people. They used us until we broke, and then they made more." Reed felt rage boil inside him. He thought of Earth, of humanity. If these masters came for humans, would they also chain them, twist them, break them? His gut told him yes. And suddenly saving Lyra was no longer just about her, it was about his entire species. But before he could speak, the pod lit brighter. A voice filled the chamber, heavy and cold. "You cannot hide, human, you cannot protect her. She is ours, and soon your kind will join her in chains." Lyra screamed, clutching her head, the glow of her body flickering wildly. Reed grabbed her shoulders, shouting, "Fight it, don't let them in." Her eyes rolled with pain, her voice cracked. "They are inside me, human, they are pulling, I cannot hold much longer." Reed lifted his rifle, firing into the pod. The glass shattered, sparks and smoke filled the chamber. The voice roared, furious, then faded into silence. Lyra collapsed into his arms, her glow dim, her body shaking. For a long moment, Reed held her, his heart pounding. He realized the truth now. The enemy was not only on the battlefield, the enemy was inside their minds, their hearts, their choices, the enemy within. And if he failed to resist it, then both, he and Lyra, would be lost, not to war, not to bullets, but to chains far darker than death. The tunnels grew colder as Reed carried Lyra on his back. Her body was light, too light, as if the life inside her was fading. Her faint glow barely lit the dark, flickering like a candle in the wind. Reed's boots echoed on stone, each step heavy, each breath filled with dust. "You must leave me," Lyra whispered weakly, her voice like broken glass. Reed tightened, his grip, his jaw locked. "Not happening," he growled. "I didn't drag you this far to drop you now." She trembled, her face pressed against his shoulder. "You risk your own life for mine, human. And for what? I am not your kind." "Not your blood," Reed pushed on, sweat dripping down his face. "You're alive," he said, his voice hard. "That's all that matters, nothing else." But deep inside, doubt gnawed at him. His rations were gone, his strength thinning. If she could not eat soon, she would die. And if he starved too, neither of them would see the next sunrise at Puyo. Last, the tunnel opened into a hidden chamber. Old lights flickered weakly, revealing crates covered in dust. Reed's heart lifted, supplies, abandoned but still sealed. He tore open one crate, finding packets of dried food, stale but edible. His hands shook as he pulled them out. Salvation. He knelt beside Lyra, placing food in her hands. Her eyes widened, glowing faintly. "No," she whispered, pushing it back. "You take it, human. Your body needs it more. I can fade. You must live." Reed's chest burned with anger and sorrow. "Eat," he barked. "That's an order." But her hands refused to move. Slowly, she looked at him, her voice breaking. "I was made to serve, to obey, to give my life for others. If I must die now so you live, then let me. I can die for you, human. Just let me clean your boots one last time." Reed's throat tightened. The words cut deeper than any wound. He saw the truth in her eyes. She meant it. She was ready to give her last breath for him. But something inside Reed snapped. "No," he said, his voice shaking with rage. "Not like this, not as a slave, not as chains. You don't die for me, Lyra. You live with me." He forced the food into her hands and held them there. Her lips trembled, tears glowing on her cheeks. Then slowly, she ate, each bite filling her with faint light. Reed watched, his chest heavy, knowing every piece she ate meant less for him, but he did not care. If she survived, it was enough. When she finished, her glow returned slightly. She leaned against him, her voice soft. "Why do you do this, human? Why choose me over your people, over your duty?" Reed met her eyes, his voice steady. "Because I choose what's right, not what they tell me. And because I believe you deserve more than chains." Silence filled the chamber, broken only by distant echoes from the tunnels. But Reed felt it. The hunt was not over. Somewhere above, ships moved, shadows gathering. The masters were coming, and humanity was blind to it. Suddenly, the radio on Reed's belt crackled again. Hale's voice cut through the static, sharp and cold. "Reed, last warning. Command has branded you traitor. Surrender now or be hunted like the alien you protect." Reed clenched his fists, fury burning in him. He wanted to shout, to tell Hale the truth, but he knew it would mean nothing. Hale was already lost too. Orders. Lyra reached out, touching Reed's arm gently. Her eyes glowed softly, filled with sorrow. "They will not stop, human. Not until you fall. Not until I am chained again. Your people will see you as enemy. My people's masters will see me as property. We cannot fight both forever." Reed looked at her, his voice low. "Then we don't fight forever. We fight now. We fight until they listen, or until we burn." The chamber shook suddenly, dust raining down from above. Engines roared outside. The sound of ships landing, lights flickered red, alarms long buried coming alive. The masters had found the tunnels. Lyra's body stiffened, terror flashing in her eyes. "They are here," she whispered. "The chains, the voices, the end." Reed lifted his rifle, his hand steady. "Then we make a stand," he said, his voice calm. She looked at him, trembling. "You would die for me, human?" Reed shook his head. "No, Lyra, I live for you, and you live for me." The ceiling cracked, metal beams crashing down. From the smoke, tall figures appeared. Varan hunters, armored, cruel, their eyes burning with cold fire. Chains dangled from their armor, rattling as they stepped forward. Their voices hissed, filling the chamber with poison. "Slave, return, your master calls." Lyra collapsed, clutching her head, her glow flaring and fading. Reed dropped to his knees beside her, shouting, "Fight it! Don't listen!" Her voice cracked, broken with fear. "I cannot. They are pulling me, human. They are inside my mind." Reed lifted her in his arms, standing tall against the hunters, his rifle aimed, his breath steady. "You'll have to go through me first," he said. The hunters laughed, a sound like steel grinding on stone. "You are only human, weak flesh that breaks. She is ours, and soon all of your kind will kneel." Reed's heart thundered, but his voice was iron. "Not while I breathe." The first shot rang out. Fire lit the chamber. Reed and Lyra stood against the storm, and in that moment, choice became sacrifice, and sacrifice became war. The chamber shook with fire and thunder. Reed stood firm, his rifle blazing, every shot echoing like defiance against the chains of the masters. Around him, the hunters pressed closer, their armor gleaming, their weapons burning with cruel light. And in his arms, Lyra clung weakly, her glow fading, her voice trembling. "You cannot win, human." The hunters hissed, their voices cold as steel. "She is ours. She was made for us, and you will kneel beside her." Reed's jaw tightened. Sweat stung his eyes, but his voice was iron. "No, she belongs to no one, not anymore, not ever again." The hunters lunged, chains snapping through the air like whips. Reed fired, rolling aside, sparks and stone bursting around him. He felt the weight of hopelessness pressing in. Too many enemies, too much power, too little strength left. But he refused to stop. Lyra lifted her head, her glow flickering. Her voice was weak but filled with fire. "They want me, human, not you. Give me to them and you live. If I stay, you die." Reed shook his head fiercely. "Then we die together, but we don't give in." The hunters closed in, their weapons raised, and then the ground roared, the ceiling splitting open. From above, bright beams cut through the smoke. Human ships. Reed's eyes widened, his heart pounding. Reinforcements, but not salvation. The voice of Hale filled the chamber, carried by speakers. "Captain Reed, surrender the alien and stand down. This is your last chance." Reed's chest tightened, caught between two walls of death. His own people on one side, the masters on the other, and in the middle, Lyra, dying, trembling, trusting him alone. Lyra touched his face gently, her eyes glowing faintly. "You must choose, human. If you fight both, you will be crushed. If you give me up, you live but lose everything. If you protect me, maybe both our people can see the truth." Reed's mind raced, his breath heavy. He thought of Earth, of soldiers who followed orders blindly. He thought of Lyra's scars, her chains, her tears. He thought of the whispers in his own head, the voices of the masters, and in that moment, his choice became clear. Reed stood tall, lifting Lyra higher in his arms. His voice thundered through the chamber, carried by rage and truth. "She is not your slave, not your enemy, not your experiment. She is proof that humanity is more than orders, more than chains. If you kill us now, you kill your future too." For a heartbeat, silence hung in the chamber. Both hunters and soldiers froze. Hale's voice cracked through the static, full of disbelief. "Reed, what are you saying?" "She's the enemy." Reed's reply was steady, unbroken. "No, Hale, she is not. She is the key. We've been fighting the wrong war. The true enemy is the one behind her chains, and they are coming for all of us. The hunters roared in fury, chains lashing, weapons firing. But before they could strike, Lyra lifted her hand. Her glow flared bright, brighter than ever before. Her body shook, burning with power. "Human," she whispered, her voice breaking. "This is my last gift. My last breath. I will shield you, but it will cost me everything." Reed's heart shattered. "No, don't you dare," he shouted. But she smiled faintly, her tears glowing. "You fed me when no one else would. You saw me when all others saw chains. Now I choose you, forever." Light burst from her body, filling the chamber with blinding fire. The hunters screamed as the chains melted, their weapons shattering. The masters' voices howled, torn from the air, silenced. Even the human soldiers staggered, their rifles falling as shields flickered. The storm of light consumed all. Reed shielded his eyes, holding Lyra tight. When the glow faded, silence fell. The hunters were gone, burned to ash. The human soldiers stood stunned, their eyes wide with fear and awe. And in his arms, Lyra lay still, her glow almost gone. Reed sank to his knees, his voice breaking. "Stay with me, Lyra. Please don't leave now." Her eyes fluttered open, weakly. "I am tired, human, so tired." Tears filled Reed's eyes, his throat tight. "You promised to live with me, not die for me." She smiled faintly, her hand brushing his cheek. "Then feed me again, human. Feed me forever." Reed clutched her close, his voice raw. "Not until I'm full, Lyra. Until forever." Hale stepped forward, lowering his rifle, his face torn with conflict. He looked at Reed, then at the alien in his arms. For the first time, Hale did not see an enemy. He saw something else, hope. The soldiers lowered their weapons slowly, uncertain. The war was not over, the masters were not gone. But something had changed in that chamber. One human had chosen compassion over chains. One alien had chosen sacrifice over fear. Together, they had forged a new path. Reed stood, carrying Lyra, his eyes burning with fire. He looked at his people, then at the stars beyond the broken ceiling. His voice was steady, unyielding. "This is our fight now, not against each other, but against the chains. If we stand together, human and Varen, we can win." The silence broke with nods, hesitant but real, a seed planted in the heart of war, the beginning of something greater than survival, the beginning of freedom. Reed held Lyra close, her faint glow steady against his chest. For the first time he felt not only duty, not only war, he felt purpose. And as the stars above shimmered, he whispered again, "Until forever."